Frankie with the Italian flag lining. I don't have the Italian flag, but
you're styling, though. You're always styling, Gino.
I'm not Frankie Corrado. All right, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to play Frankie's Forecast. I'm going to give you 5 topics, and you tell me what you think about them looking ahead, all right?
All right, let's do it.
Let's begin with Connor McDavid. He's 150 points shy of the 1,000-point plateau for his NHL career. He had 153 last year. Does he hit the 1,000 mark this year?
As much as I'd like to see him hit 150 points this year, I don't think he gets there. It's hard to expect him to get there every single year. If you look at FanDuel right now, they have the over-under set at 137.5. Gino, I'll take the over on what FanDuel has, but I'll take the under on your 150.
That was last year was 30 points better than his previous career best, so I understand that. 3 Canadian teams made the playoffs last season. How many make it this year?
3 Canadian teams this year. For me, Toronto's a lock, Edmonton's a lock, and then it was between Calgary and Ottawa. I think Ottawa's the better team. They have a better chance to make it. Calgary may have an easier path in the Western Conference. I look at the Central Division and think there might just be the 3 teams in the Central and no wild card teams from the Central, but ultimately I think Ottawa gets there, Calgary doesn't. Give me 3 teams again this year.
You slid by this. You said the Leafs are a lock to make the playoffs. If that's indeed the case, could they reach the conference final for the first time since 2002?
Not the way this decor is constructed. No, there needs to be more work done on the decor. It's a fairly mobile unit. It needs to be a little bigger, a little more robust. As we've seen in the playoffs, the teams that go far and do well have that element on their decor. They don't have that right now. The other thing that might scare me a little bit about this decor, Gino, what happens if someone gets hurt? It's a little thin. There's not like a big top 4 and then a significant drop. They need a little more depth on the back end.
Should they pull the trigger on a big deal to make that happen?
Why not? Yeah, if you have the opportunity to pull the trigger on a big deal and go out and get a defenseman, you have to consider it if you're the Leafs. But I don't know if that situation has presented itself yet. I know in free agency they were probably trying to make moves. They weren't able to do it. So now it's going to be a work in progress throughout the season.
Leafs former general manager Kyle Dubas is now running the show in Pittsburgh. The Pens missed the playoffs by just a single point last year. Does Dubas bring them to the postseason in his first year there?
Yes, he does, and for a few reasons. Number one, I think Mike Sullivan is an unbelievable coach, one of the best coaches in the league. He will find a way to extract the most he possibly can from that team. Sidney Crosby is going to have a big season again. You can't even call it a bounce-back season because he was so dominant last year. The way this decor is going to work for Pittsburgh, it's going to be a big top 4. They need more out of Tristan Jarry, but for them, missing the playoffs by 1 point last year, I can absolutely see them making the playoffs this year.
They're aging, though, Frankie. They're aging. You know these guys. You played on this team. You knew what they were like at their peaks, but they're aging. Can they really hang on and make another big push?
We'll see when it happens, but ultimately, this is their last little bit of runway here. Whether it's 2 years or 3 years might even be a stretch. But if they're not going to do it now, they're not going to do it the year after. So I think it's at least one more year where they make the playoffs and try and make a run for things.
All right, looking ahead now, Connor Bedard, 2.5 points per game last year in Regina, 143 points in 57 games. But that was junior hockey. You made the transition to junior to the NHL. Will he be a point-a-game player in the National Hockey League?
Listen, it's one of those things for Connor Bedard where he probably has the capability to do it, but an 18-year-old jumping into the NHL, it is very difficult, and he's not going to play on a team that's going to give him a lot of help. So to expect him to be a point per game, I don't see that happening. I think Bedard is somewhere in and around the 70, 72, 75 points maybe if things go really, really well for him. You also got to consider that maybe there's chances he's going to face some adversities, might face some injuries. That is going to get in the way of him being a point per game player this year, but it's coming shortly after this year.
What do the Hawks need to do to give this guy some support so they're not hanging him out there? Because right now there's really not a lot of help for him.
Well, listen, I think they did what they could. They went out and got Taylor Hall. They got some veteran guys in Corey Perry and Nick Foligno who can help bring this guy along, show him what it's like to compete every day in the league, take him out to dinner, all that kind of stuff, make him feel as comfortable as he possibly can. As far as the work they've done, really, now it's going to be about surrounding him with a core nucleus of players that are around his age and growing together. That's how we see all these great cores, whether it was LA or Chicago or Pittsburgh or Tampa Bay. They all have that in common. It's that core group of players in and around the same age demographic that came up together and ultimately had team success.
There you have it. That's Frankie's forecast. But he doesn't have the Italian flag lining today. We'll have to work on that for the future. We'll keep an eye on your predictions moving forward.